you, but I'm a little exhausted. This last week of readings has been a whole lot of fighting, a whole lot of war, and yet a whole lot of victory for the Israelites, which is great. However, war is still war. And even when I read in here that the hail did more damage, like we read earlier this week, the hail did more damage than what the Israelites fighting did. All I know is they were still fighting. That probably still required a great amount of physical effort. I've never fought in a war as we would know a war to be. However, I can imagine what that would require. I can even imagine how psyched up you'd have to get for that, because I just think of the kind of wars, if you will, that I've had to battle in my life. You know, spiritual warfare. I think of when I went through my divorce. It was not pretty and it felt like a war. I remember it was physically, emotionally, and spiritually exhausting. So as I've been reading these last several chapters, and today is Joshua 12 actually, and it's the kings defeated east of the Jordan. And so, here we have the Israelites, 40 years in the wilderness, excited to get to the promised land. And here we are, we're now in the promised land. It's not like the doors just swung open and they get to walk in and take this land. I mean, they have to battle for this land. And yes, the Lord said he will give them victory, but it still requires a great amount of faith. It still requires them to go out and fight and put themselves in position to be in danger, right? And so it would just require a great amount of faith, physical, emotional, mental well-being, spiritual well-being. Oh my goodness, I just can't even imagine. So those are the kinds of things I was thinking about over yesterday and today specifically, because I was just like, I wonder where I've experienced God fulfilling a promise and it didn't necessarily feel like what you might imagine as a promise, a cakewalk. Like a birthday present or somebody throwing you a birthday party. The promise and the fulfillment of God's promises still require effort on our part. Today I'm seeing they still require physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual battling on our part. And you just think obviously the promised land was worth having, and obviously that's where the Lord was taking them. But how many times do we think the Lord's not in it if it's not going the way we think it should, or it's not as simple as we want it to be? I know that as I was going through my divorce and we were getting ready to be in the courtroom to settle our case, there was a part of me that just wanted to give up and give him whatever he wanted to just be done with it. And yet I knew I had to go in and plead my case. The Israelites still had to go and fight the people that were in the areas the Lord was giving them to take. That doesn't make it fun. That doesn't make it easy. And it requires a great amount of faith. Those were the things that I was thinking about today as I was reading yesterday, Joshua 11, and today, Joshua 12. But just something the Lord's just kind of been stewing. I've been stewing over, I guess you would say. Like, wow, I guess when I think of going and taking the promised land, it wouldn't have been so difficult. It wouldn't require so much. It reminds me of that verse in the New Testament that says, faith without works is dead. I mean, they still had to do their part. They could have faith all day long that God was bringing them into the promised land, but they still had to do their part. And even though their part might have done a very small portion of the winning, like we read earlier this week, when the hail that the Lord brought down on the enemies killed more people than the Israelites killed. But all the same, we still have a part to play. That's what was like, things are not always going to be easy, even if it's part of God's plan. Even good things from the Lord can come in a way that doesn't always feel good. And it can require great effort, great faith on our part, and just reliance on the Lord. And that was just such a good reminder for me today, because I think sometimes it's easy to fall back into saying, well, this isn't comfortable, so this is probably not the way. This is not the direction. It should be easier than this. Now here's what I know. There are times when God is doing something and things seem to happen so easy and so naturally, you just know. You can't stop what God is doing. But there are other times that it is still very much, I believe, there are still times that it is very much the Lord's plans and purposes for us, but it might not be the cakewalk we had hoped it would be. Anyways, that was my big, just kind of revelation this week as I've been reading through Joshua and the Israelites continuing to take possession of the promised land. And it was interesting because today I went to our Friday Bible study, and I'm going to put the Bible studies on this post in an image because I want you to have access to joining us. I mean, if you're reading my blogs on occasion, if you have any type of just inkling or desire to get in the Word, or feel like some conviction that you should be getting in the Word, but you're nervous to do it on your own, maybe you're concerned you won't understand it, believe me, I've been there. But here's one thing I can promise you is you won't be doing it alone. And so even if you just want to start by joining the weekly Bible study and kind of learning how we open the Word and we read the chapter for that day, and then we start sharing the revelations that God is giving us, the questions that we have, the concerns that it brings up, just the things we don't understand. I loved it. Today, one of the girls from chapter 12 in Bible study was drawn to how many kings. It was very specific how many kings had been defeated. It says, in all, 31 kings were defeated. Now, I've been doing this reading a chapter a day for more than 6-7 years. And here's what I know. Every bit that is included in the Word has purpose, has meaning. I wasn't drawn to the number 31 today, but the gal in the group was. And it was really cool to hear what she had discovered as it caused her to dive deeper and see what that meaning was and why they would have had such specificity. Why not just say they killed all the kings? Why did they say it killed 31 kings? See, that's something I wouldn't have thought of. My attention wasn't drawn to that today, but that was a huge blessing for me to hear what she had learned and why the details in the Bible are so important. So I want to encourage you, definitely get in the Word. Trust that this gift of the Holy Spirit that we've been given will give us revelation. It will give us discernment as we continue to read the Word consistently. But recognize that the Lord did not put us on this earth to do life alone. We were put here to do life in community and to have fellowship with one another, especially believers. And it is the coolest experience to not only get revelations and to hear the Holy Spirit and to get more, just to get better at discerning the Lord's voice. But there is so much power in doing that in community. We're not reading different chapters of the Bible. We're reading the same chapter every day. And we get together weekly and just share what God is teaching us, questions we're having, things we're frustrated with, areas of our life we're just struggling. And it is one of the most beautiful things I've ever been a part of. So I just want to encourage you and let you know that you can start whenever. You don't have to wait till we start Genesis over. You don't have to wait till we start a new book of the Bible. And you certainly don't have to wait until we start the New Testament. You can start today, and I encourage you to do just that, because if you're feeling prompted to right here, right now, I guarantee it's for the reason.